내려고 때서 다 체력도 못 쏘쳐버려. 우리 내려고 때는 야 마치를 보고서는 보고서 마치 보고서 잡대지 랑동 야바라 도로 지로 랑나나 땅에 가는데 보고서 세면 지는 그 담비는 요래 마치를 상탕 동반의 손에 떼다가 무슨 누구로 주에 상탕 동반의 장만 걸어 터를 그 마치 장그 속참마도 보고서 세면 손에 그 빠르게 보고서 소쪽 터서때 로지는 다 보고 로지는 무보 소한테 동을 대사가 랑소 루스당을 들이 보고서 접접때 대사가 세대 가리 용과를 다 이기를 용과를 삼제를 용과를 했지 삼제 지금 다 매파 차대요래 다 매파 차대는 대오다 다면 독서 뭐 시선 다 거대 예배 다 거대 예배서 들이 조사 치고 저 계량을 들이 대든지 뒤수고들이 죽을 기사 받을 내력대에서 생광은 내력을 입어서 마음이 줄였지와 많이 길이 찢사도 요방 많이 손들이 잡아 말이랑 세고 내력을 하고 대려들이 상지라고 요래시 대려 상지 길이 자르려 말이지 사지 이나 믿어라 잘때에서 뭐부터 당시에 사지 길이구나 말아래 자외 상지에 미니베랑 세면 세니 두성 송거리라 대가리고래 대박고 그랬지 이치고 그랬지 대박도 없고 나오는데 야구들이 힘이 좋소 대박에 따따따 대박에 되면 따바로 대박에 양대양대 지나 들이 처음에 봐요 이치제라들이 라마센터랑 셈 예비바들이 차롱처럼 좋아하는 차서고에 대회들이 콘소성 문이 누저 카기시여 많이 봐 동물들이 개신이 쩍같은 콘소성 차도 없어 참아서 차서 대회를 개신이 싸치버리지 septisam지가 맥다가 흥다가 너는 동의를 줘고 septisam지를 가려고 동의를 줘고 그러지 동의를 줘고 개신이는 맞이나 따라랑 porto고요 말이지 그 개신이 싸치버리서 좀 자는 것이 쩍 캡스 그래지 세트 그래지 될 개신이 시바도 됐다 그래 서로 동물이 트리콘 초군들라 말소한데 될마 석권소선 거기도 그게도 송답게 톡창제 대선 참거해서 네 소말해
So, Dhamma friends, we continue with the fivefold path of Mahāmudrā supplication prayer, and we have come to the third verse at the end, where we said that Mahayana mind is manifest in the Sangha's form. I pray to the Guru, the embodiment of all the precious ones. So, according to the outer pratimoksha vehicle, it is said that within the Guru, the three jewels are complete. So, meaning that the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha are complete within the Guru. And so then we cannot just leave it with empty words saying that, oh, with him all the three jewels are complete. That alone is of no benefit. But we need to know what it actually means. And the Buddha himself actually had said, do not blindly believe anything I say, but analyze my words, just as you would polish and cut gold. So what he ultimately is saying is that we have to discuss his words. We have to really analyze what is being said. And so now when we are saying within the Guru, the three jewels are complete, we also need to really understand what that actually means. We need to know what are the three jewels really, and what do they do, and what is their power. And so then we can say, so within the Guru's body, all the Sangha is complete. And why is that? So whichever path one enters of the Pratimoksha, the Bodhisattva Yana, and the Mahayana, it begins with the Pratimoksha. The essence of the Pratimoksha, or the individual liberation path, is to abandon harming others entirely. And the body of someone who does that is representative of the Sangha. So what that means is that they have a commitment: I am not going to cause any harm towards others. And then for the Bodhisattva vow, it says, accomplish the benefit of others and its cause entirely. And so what does that mean? In the Bodhisattva Charyavatara, it says, the only medicine for the suffering of sentient beings and the only source of all happiness. So what is that? That is the precious teachings of the Buddha. And that is what we call the Dharma, the various scriptures, the words of the Buddha. And all of these words are condensed into the teachings on the twofold truth. And so for us, mainly the teachings on karma, cause and effect. So that is what all the gurus, the spiritual masters, express to us with their speech. So they have, first of all, understood the meaning of that and then are able to show that to others. So within the speech of the guru, therefore, the speech of the Buddha, the speech of all the gurus is complete. And in essence, the speech of the Buddha is condensed into the twofold truth. So in the beginning, for as long, before we have realized the ultimate truth, for as long as we still see a duality of self and other, to us the relative truth is most important. And that means that altruism is most important. And then when one has seen the ultimate truth, then one has realized that self and other are non-dual. And with that, one realizes that all sentient beings can actually become liberated from samsara if they become liberated from the dualistic grasping. So the speech is the Dharma, and then the mind of the guru is the Buddha. And so, sorry. So there's this quote that says, in the Yamataka, it says that when give completely forsaking my own purpose, may the benefit of others be spontaneously accomplished. Sorry. So the guru is someone who abides within the 3 levels of vows, and that is the guru's mind. And so it's important that the mind abides within the mind abides within the awakened mind. There's no benefit if just the body abides within those vows. So what is that mind of a Buddha? It is a wish to benefit all sentient beings. And so how can they be benefited? Well, sentient beings are a creation of self-grasping. So they need to destroy self-grasping. And self-grasping is destroyed through ultimately the realization of the profound emptiness. And relatively, it is destroyed through loving kindness. And when self-grasping is destroyed, all sentient beings are actually Buddhas. That is when they realize that there is no self, when they realize that self and other are non-dual, then all sentient beings are actually Buddhas. So someone who realizes that, a guru who realizes that, sees that all these sentient beings who grasp at a duality of self and other see things this way because they are in a state of mental confusion. And now the gurus themselves, having realized how things really are, then introduce those beings to how things actually are from their own experience. So they see that sentient beings exist because they perceive everything in a dualistic way. Everything is seen in this polarized kind of two way. And that is what creates samsara. And then all these dualistic phenomena are compounded phenomena and therefore impermanent by nature. And so everything is impermanent. Suffering is also impermanent, and happiness is also impermanent. And one realizes non-duality. That is called the non-dual primordial wisdom. And that wisdom has cleared away all dualistic perception. That is what is called non-dual primordial wisdom. Or it is called the view of Mahāmudrā. Sorry, the view of Mahāmudrā. So the guru has realized this non-dual view of Mahāmudrā. But what it really actually is, it is just the true nature of the mind. There is no need to give it all kinds of different names like Mahāmudrā or Dzogchen and so on. What it is the Guru has seen the true nature of the mind. And the true nature of the mind is like space. And space transcends birth and death. And then the Guru considers that if sentient beings would realize that, they would all be happy. Then they would all see that their samsaric existence is nothing but a dream or an illusion. Milarepa also had said that when you realize that mind is indivisible from space, you have actualized the Dharmakaya. So I want to give another example of mind being indivisible from space, or it is like water and ice. For example, if you have very, very hot water and you throw an ice block into it, then it will instantly melt. So sentient beings are like ice blocks, and Buddhas are like an ocean. So now there appears to be this duality. There's Buddhas and there's sentient beings, but the sentient beings are just like the ice blocks floating on the ocean. The Buddha had said, beings are only obscured by adventitious stains. So when you understand that, you have understood the root of all the Dharma. So then, since sentient beings are like an ice block, how can we melt an ice block? An ice block must be melted through warmth. But it's the warmth, the heat of the mind, not the external warmth. The sun cannot melt the ice block of the mind. So the warmth of the mind is a mind of loving kindness and compassion. That is what will melt the ice block of self-grasping in sentient beings. And so that is something that you have to understand on an experiential level by looking at your own mind and really experiencing, feeling how your love melts away self-grasping. And that really actually stands to reason. For example, nowadays, science is considered as most important. And science looks at how things really are in their true nature. And so we can really see how that really actually is in actuality. So for example, there are many stories, for example, of how a mother completely abandoned concern for her own self in order to protect her child. And so when the child encounters difficulties, the mother forgets about herself and only thinks about how to protect her child. But for example, there was this story where a wolf attacked them, like a child, and so then another wolf and took actually the mother and took the child into her lap, and in that way was able to protect the child. So there's real stories of how mothers act out of love for their children. So the mother would even give up her own life force for the sake of the child. And so why is she able to do that? It comes from compassion. It is because of her love for the child, her compassion for the child, and selflessness. So when one recognizes that selflessness, that the lack of a self, one is said to realize the ultimate view, which is the indivisibility of samsara and nirvana. And that is the view accepted throughout all the four major lineages. Lord Jigten Sumgön also had said that the Buddha only showed the fundamental nature of all phenomena. And so that essentially is the true nature of the mind. And also he said that it is nothing that has not already been there before, and it is nothing that is sought anew. When you understand the nature of the mind, that is what we call the Buddha. The Buddha is not to be sought outside of your mind, elsewhere. Whenever you see your own mind, you see the Buddha. Also, Milarepa had mentioned that, and he said that do not seek the Buddha outside of your mind, but look at the nature or the characteristics of your own mind, and that is where you will find the Buddha. So the Buddha is not someone or something that hasn't already been there before. It's not something that you find anew. And so in order to find it, to see it within yourself, what do you need? What quality do you need? Mainly you need to have faith and trust. So when faith and trust arise within your heart, then that is where you will find the awakened nature within yourself. So, and that begins with the relative understanding, that having faith and understanding that all phenomena are compounded phenomena and therefore impermanent by nature. And then you continue to develop your faith continuously and increase your trust and your inspiration towards the Dharma. And ultimately you realize that the Guru's mind and your own mind are indivisible. And that is then when the ice block of your own mind has completely melted. And then once you've understood that, when you say the Guru is the embodiment of the three jewels, it is not merely lip service, not something that you just say, but it actually comes from an understanding of how the Guru, the spiritual master, really is the three jewels, embodies the three jewels. And then that's why you are able to see the spiritual master as so precious. Because the spiritual master is like the eyes or the heart of all sentient beings. So in brief, sentient beings need to become liberated from suffering. And how can they become liberated from suffering? It is through reliance on the spiritual master. They cannot become liberated just on their own. And that is why, when you understand that that's why the spiritual master is so precious. So even if someone might see 100 faults in them, and this very special quality, this one special quality, still makes the spiritual master as extremely precious and important. And so this is how you should think about it. So I pray to the Guru, the embodiment of the precious ones. So on the outer level, the Guru is the embodiment of the three jewels, which are the precious ones, meaning that the Guru's body is the Sangha, the speech is the Dharma, and the mind is the Buddha.
Bueno, aquí dijo Rinpoche que continuamos con las enseñanzas de la oración del quíntuple camino de Mahāmudrā. Dice que hemos llegado al tercer verso. Aquí empieza por describir el camino pratikmoksha, el gurú, en donde se dice que el gurú, en el gurú las tres joyas están completas. Pero dice Rinpoche que no lo debemos de dejar nada más en palabras vacías. Esto no es de beneficio. Entonces, debemos de investigar qué es lo que significa. Entonces, dice que Buda Shakyamuni nos dijo muy claramente que no creyéramos ciegamente lo que él decía, pero que analizaran sus palabras tal como se pule y se corta el oro. Entonces, lo que dice es que hay que discutir y analizar sus palabras. Entonces, en el gurú se encuentran las tres joyas completas. ¿Qué es lo que se quiere decir en esto? Se quiere decir que en el cuerpo del gurú toda la sangha está completa. Cualquier paso que uno tome comienza con el camino pratikmoksha. Este camino pratikmoksha, en sí la base de este camino es abandonar el dañar a otros. Se tiene el compromiso de no dañar a otros. Entonces después el camino del bodhisattva. Este camino es el de completar el beneficio de los demás seres. Y esto es lo que consideramos como el Dharma. Todas estas enseñanzas se condensan en las dos verdades. Todo lo que los maestros nos dicen con su habla, deben de haberlo experimentado y después enseñarlos a otros. El habla del Buda toda el habla del Buda está en las dos verdades. Mientras veamos la dualidad de unos y otros, lo más importante en ese momento es la realidad relativa. Y cuando acabamos de este apego dualista, lo importante es la realidad absoluta. Entonces, aquí cita Rinpoche que el gurú es alguien que mora en los 3 niveles de voto. Es importante que la mente more en la mente despierta. Esta mente despierta es el deseo de beneficiar a otros seres. Se necesita destruir el apego al yo por medio de la realización de la profunda vacuidad y por el amor bondadoso. Cuando se realiza que no hay una dualidad de unos y otros, todos los seres son Budas. Los gurús introducen a los otros a esta visión. Todo se ve de modo polarizado y esto es lo que crea el samsara. Todo es impermanente. Inclusive el sufrimiento y la felicidad son impermanentes. Cuando uno llega a la realización de la no dualidad, esta es la sabiduría no dual o primordial. Esta es la visión de Mahāmudrā. Esto es la naturaleza verdadera de la mente. El gurú ha visto que la naturaleza de la mente es como el espacio. Y el espacio trasciende el nacimiento y la muerte. Entonces, la existencia samsárica es como un sueño o una ilusión. Milarepa dice, la mente es indivisible del espacio, y esto es el Dharmakaya. Entonces, Rinpoche da un ejemplo en el que dice que el agua caliente, si al agua caliente tú le tiras cubos de hielos, estos cubos de hielo se derriten. Entonces, ahora parece haber una dualidad, pero esta dualidad es que en sí la mente es como el bloque de hielo flotando en el mar. Cuando entiendes esto, entiendes la raíz de todo el Dharma. Entonces, es el calor de la mente el que derrite este bloque de hielo de la mente. Esto es algo que hay que entender de manera experiencial y ver cómo tu amor derrite la mente.
She mentioned in the previous verse, that is the practice of the Yidam deity. It is that the essence of the secret mantra is the Yidam deity. And also the fivefold path is referred to as the 5 essences. So now, in the context of the Tantra Yana or the Vajrayana, it is said that the Guru is the embodiment of the 3 roots, the Lama, Yidam, and Dakini. So an ordinary person might see it this way. They might think that, well, the Guru is the Guru, and the Yidam is the Yidam. The Yidam is the deity that we visualize. And then there are many different Yidams. And the Dakinis are any female in this world, they're all Dakinis. And then within the various Yidam deities, there are male and female deities, and the female classes of deities are the Dakinis. So that is how we ordinarily think. So from the perspective of the basis, fundamentally, this is how it is, but then there's also the path and the result. From the perspective of the path, in the context of the path of the 3 roots, the Lama, Yidam, and Dakini, the Guru is the Lama. And so before we mentioned the Guru is the embodiment of the 3 jewels. So actually it is also said the Guru is the embodiment of the 9 jewels. So which is the 3 jewels, then the 3 roots, and then also the 3 kayas. So now in terms of the 3 roots, and from the perspective of the path and the context of the path, the body is the Guru or the Lama. And then the speech is the Yidam. Because through his speech, the Guru explains the levels of Yidam deity practice to the disciple, depending on the level of that disciple's experience or their mental capacity. Because it is said that the Buddhas tame sentient beings according to their needs. So that is also why the Buddha gave different levels of teachings of the Pratimoksha, the Bodhisattva, and the Vajrayana, because there are beings of higher, middling, and lower mental capacities. So the speech is the yidam, and the yidam deity practice consists of the generation stage and the completion stage that is taught to the disciple by the guru. So within the generation stage, what is the actual purpose of the generation stage? So it is that the generation stage, the purpose of the generation stage is to purify, also to train in the existence of birth, of the way in which we take birth. And then the completion stage is to purify the way in which we die. So the secret mantra path is twofold. It consists of the generation stage and the completion stage. So the generation stage purifies our grasping at a concrete, true reality, those thoughts that we have that things truly exist. And through the generation stage, we are transforming these concrete perceptions into illusory perceptions. We see things in an illusory way. And ultimately then the real essence of the generation stage is the completion stage. And in the completion stage, when we essentially practice the union of the generation and the completion stage, we realize that all appearances are like the magical display of the mind itself. That everything that appears and exists is illusory. So that union of the generation and completion stages of the appearance that is yet empty of self-nature is taught to us by the guru. The disciples cannot realize that on their own. They need to receive an explanation on that by the guru. And that is why of the three roots, the guru's speech is the yidam deity. And then the mind is the dakini. And so again, ordinarily people think that a dakini is, for example, all the female deities, they're all dakinis. But this is not all the dakinis. So the dakini represents emptiness, or the dharmodaya, which is the source of all phenomena. The source of all phenomena is emptiness. And that is what the dakini is. The dakini is emptiness, or ultimately called the Dharmakaya Great Mother. And what is the Dharmakaya Great Mother? She is the empty space. And then through the union of space, of the sky and the earth, then through the union of sky and earth, the world, the outer environment, comes into existence, comes into being. So, meaning that through the interdependence of various causes and conditions, samsara and nirvana both come about. But arise out of a single source, which is the source of emptiness. And that source is what we call the dakini. And that is the mind of the guru, is that dakini. And so why is the mind of the guru the dakini? Because the guru has realized non-duality, that self and other are inseparable. And that realization is the realization of emptiness. And that is why the mind is Dakini, because the Dakini is emptiness. So after 3 roots, the mind of the guru is the Dakini. And then now on the resultant level, so this was the path, and now on the resultant level, the guru is also the embodiment of the 3 kayas. They are all complete within the guru. Also in the later in the Mahāmudrā practice, it says one should meditate on the guru yoga. And in the context of the guru yoga, one realizes that within the guru, the 3 jewels, the 3 roots, and the 3 kayas are complete. So on the basis of that, one realizes the qualities of the guru. And by understanding the qualities of the guru, one understands that the guru is the embodiment of the 3 kayas as well in the end. And so here that means in the end, in essence, that the nature of the guru is the state of Mahāmudrā.
Bueno, una disculpa por ese pequeño problema técnico que tuvimos. Entonces aquí sigue Rinpoche. Dice que Milarepa, cita Milarepa, que dice que no busques al Buda fuera de tu mente. El Buda no es algo que encuentras como algo nuevo. Para encontrarlos necesitas tener fe y confianza. Entonces, cuando tienes fe y confianza, y cuando éstas surgen en tu corazón, ahí encuentras la naturaleza despierta de ti mismo. Todo es compuesto e impermanente, y así crece tu fe y confianza. Tu fe y tu confianza hacia el Dharma. Te das cuenta que tu mente y la del gurú son indivisibles. Esto es cuando entiendes y ves al maestro como algo tan precioso. Entonces, los seres sintientes se tienen que liberar del sufrimiento a través de la realización del maestro espiritual, y así entiendes lo precioso que es el maestro. Entonces, ahora, en el camino del Mantrayana, se da la práctica de la deidad y el yidam. En el quíntuple camino de Mahāmudrā, estos son las 5 esencias. Entonces, aquí el gurú es la personificación de las 3 raíces. Alguien ordinario verá al gurú, que es el gurú, y el yidam, que es el yidam, y las dakinis como las dakinis. Pero todo esto tiene un concepto más profundo. Si alguien ordinario piensa desde esta perspectiva de la base, que la base es así, pero desde el contexto del camino de las 3 raíces, el gurú es el ama. Entonces, las 3 raíces, en el contexto del camino, el gurú es el ama, y el habla es el yidam, porque a través de esta habla, el gurú explica a sus discípulos, dependiendo de la capacidad de sus discípulos. Entonces, hay seres de diferentes capacidades. Hay seres de capacidades bajas, medias y altas. Entonces, el gurú adapta siempre su enseñanza y su habla de acuerdo a estas capacidades. La práctica del yidam consiste en 2 fases, la fase de generación y la fase de terminación. En la fase de generación se entrena a la mente en la manera que uno nace, y la fase de determinación es la manera como se entrena en la manera como uno se muere. Entonces, a través de la etapa de generación, vamos transformando nuestras percepciones sólidas en percepciones más ilusorias. En la fase de terminación realizamos que todas las apariencias son como unas ilusiones. Entonces, esta unión de estas 2 fases son enseñadas por el gurú. Esto no lo pueden realizar los discípulos por sí solos. Entonces, aquí se dice que la mente del gurú es la dakini. La gente cree que la dakini son todas las deidades femeninas. Esto es la gente ordinaria. Pero el verdadero significado de dakini es vacuidad. Otro significado también de dakini es la madre del gran Dharmakaya. ¿Y qué es este gran Dharmakaya? Es el espacio Vak. A través de la unión de cielo y la tierra, el ambiente externo se vuelve realidad. por la interdependencia de varias condiciones, surge el samsara. Entonces, ¿por qué la mente del gurú es la dakini? Porque el gurú ya realizó la no dualidad. Esta es la realización de la vacuidad. De las tres raíces, la mente del gurú es la dakini. En el nivel resultante, el gurú es la personificación de los tres kayas. Entonces, en la práctica del Mahāmudrā se dice que uno debe de meditar en la práctica de gurú yoga. En esta práctica, las cualidades del gurú, uno entiende que es la personificación de los tres kayas y que la naturaleza del gurú es el estado de Mahāmudrā.
랑 샘 동일 좋다고요 말이. 대외들은 난 샘부터는 산속 샘도 샘을 내오나 나디도 시오나 나디도 요로 가려고도 나디도 요나 이 직장 지금 말이 너게 강에 나오 너마도 너도 잖아. 들이들 너희 청청 요나 들이들 지고 쳔보 요리 마 동도 때때면 차 들이라시자 말이. 비 감리들 랑그 한박 달러 저대로 청청조나 랑가 컴바드 찌찌르데 비 쳔보래. 치고 차대 오르 쳐버렸어. 잘리티에서 강한 말이 총총 맞아 말이. 대다원들이 오 센티 담실 때는 안 그래도 이 총총 차라고요. 오 강한 말이 대다 하고는 습기는 이제 지나 들으라 그래도 총총을 챘어요. 대다원 장마 들이다다 누구를 저거 타면이 대화다 대외 저 산속생들이 사마다는 이제 동해가 끼와 탐색이 되는 게 대화다 대외 저 내가 똥새 용어 탐지 산속생각까지는 동이 똥새 용어 좀 많던데 따따따는 라는 동이 가려주는 어때 라는 문제를 했던 차지 지냈더니 동이 강행 주고요 그래 추기때 사악한 것을 강행 주나요 두개 꼴로 살로서나 고속하는 요 말이오 두개에서 지치에서 당들 레드데는 저런 거 레드데는 뜻성세죠 뒤들어 답자죠 말이야 파면이 니노 바탕 디피사서선 뒤로도 요 말이 대다가 답치지 용데 대다가 치나 이 예리들이요 다들이 이 대통령잖아 사바들 들이다 답치를 이 대통령에 써왔는데 이 대통령에 대봤더니 오늘 주민이 뭐지 주민 뭐지 주시 용되지 주민 뭐지 대랑 이제요 데이터를 고고로 해야지.
And then Jigten Sumgen also spoke about the 4 kayas of the guru, and so we're speaking about the qualities of a guru. So we first need to understand the quality of a guru, of all the spiritual masters. And so first, whenever in the context of Guru Yoga, then we first understand through the Guru's instruction the 3 kayas of a Buddha's mind. And so then what the Guru has realized is within their own mind, they have realized that all beings possess that same mind, Buddha nature. And that when the dualistic grasping has become purified, then the mind itself becomes manifest as the 3 kayas. So the 3 kayas reveal themselves within the mind or the mind itself. And so how they manifest is that the empty essence of the mind is recognized as the Dharmakaya, the natural clarity of the mind as the Sambhogakaya, and the all-pervasive compassion as the Nirmanakaya. And this is how we are also introduced to the nature of Mahāmudrā, the mind that is Mahāmudrā. Also, Jigten Sumgen likens the Guru's 4 kayas to a snow mountain. So here we're speaking about the qualities of the 4 kayas. So we have mentioned the 3 kayas, and then the 4th kaya, which is the Svabhavika kaya, is that when you realize the nature of your own mind, you realize that your own mind is indivisible from the Guru's mind. And that realization in itself is called the 4th kaya. It's called kind of made a separate kaya. That is called the Svabhavika, or the essence kaya. So and within that understanding that your mind is indivisible from the Guru's mind, from that arises devotion or uncontrived devotion. Milarepa also had said, aren't there many who possess the scriptures and the lineage, but the true ornament of a disciple is the uncontrived devotion. And so uncontrived devotion arises from the 3 kinds of faith. That is the clear faith, the the trusting faith, so the longing faith, and then the trusting faith. So from that arises devotion, and then ultimately the uncontrived devotion. So first, the faith that must arise is meaning that one must understand the quality of the qualities of the gurus and of the holy Dharma, and the suffering of samsara, and that there is a method to become liberated from that suffering, and that is only the holy Dharma. And when we understand that, then we begin to understand the qualities of all the spiritual masters. So the spiritual masters are those who have trained in previous lifetimes and now bring with them an imprint of bodhicitta into this lifetime. For example, now we speak about the tulkus, which is the Nirmanakaya. They appear in this human world, and already at a very young age, they possess many of the qualities of the holy Dharma. They abide within the 3 higher trainings and so on. So we generally call them a tulku and Nirmanakaya, an emanation. And so what they really are, the reason why we call them that is because they bring a continuum of bodhicitta with them from previous lives. And then in this life, they appear in all kinds of different forms. They take birth in various different bodies and all over the world in many different ways. So that is what we call a tulku of the 3 kayas. And so we said there's the Nirmanakaya, Sambhogakaya, and the Dharmakaya. And so the Nirmanakaya is what we call tulku in Tibetan. And so in the context of Mahāmudrā, when it comes to recognizing the essence of Mahāmudrā, then there's also the 4th kaya, or the Svabhavika kaya. And in order to realize that, devotion or uncontrived devotion is essential. So we need to understand the qualities of those 4 kayas, or 3 kayas first, of the guru. Guru Rinpoche had said that when first of all, he said, when you hear the history, the story, then an inspiration arises in your mind. And when you understand the qualities, when you know the qualities, then faith arises in your mind. So we develop an inspiration when we hear the story, because when we hear the story about the masters who have already trained in previous lives and who bring this stream of bodhicitta with them into this life, then an inspiration arises within us. So what really makes them manifest in such a way so as to benefit sentient beings is the aspiration prayers that they have made throughout many previous lifetimes. Had they not made these aspiration prayers, and would they not have the karma, then all of this, there would be no Buddha appearing and turning the wheel of the Dharma and so forth. But the Buddha appeared and turned the wheel of the Dharma, and many of the various different kinds of teachers appeared, the teachers of the scriptures and on the experiential level and so on, and they all appear out of aspiration from previous lives. And they appear because sentient beings are suffering. And so actually, because what we call a tulku or Nirmanakaya is basically a form emanation, there are actually pure and impure form emanations, or tulkus or Nirmanakayas. So in that sense, we can say that actually all beings are tulkus in a way, because tulku or form emanation means that they are emanations of Buddha nature. All beings possess Buddha nature. But even though beings possess Buddha nature, temporarily they have not realized that. So temporarily, their mind is like a frozen ice block. And an ice block is by nature suffering, whereas the ocean water has no suffering. So the true nature of mind in its essence has no suffering. And all the thoughts and emotions and things that arise are just like snowflakes falling on water. They just dissolve into themselves as they touch the water, meaning that those realized beings know that all of these appearances are not real. And that is actually explained extensively in the scriptures too. But from an experiential perspective, for example, in prison, when I was in prison, there were different kinds of individuals. For example, two people may have been together in the same situation, but their suffering was completely different. There were some in prison who were always happy, and they always thought that this is nice, this is good. And then there were others who were so overwhelmed with misery that they even committed suicide. So the difference only lies in recognizing or not recognizing Buddha nature. And when one recognizes it, then one becomes just like these masters who see everything as a good thing. So then when you see these qualities, then you realize that this is how I can become liberated from suffering. I want to become free from suffering. And this state of mind is the level of the pratimoksha, or individual liberation. But then finally you realize that for as long as I only wish for my own liberation from suffering, I will actually never become really liberated. In order to become liberated, I must give rise to an altruistic mind. So then secondly, one enters the bodhisattva path. One cultivates bodhicitta. And if one cultivates bodhicitta, finally one reaches the Vajrayana path, where one then realizes through bodhicitta that self and other are inseparable. And so in this way, one realizes the ultimate view as one progresses along the various bhumis and the paths. So when you see the qualities in the guru, then you recognize that, and it is from this guru that I can find the method to become free from suffering. So the guru, therefore, is the eyes for the blind and the heart for the heartless. And when you realize that, it does not just become a lip service, but it really comes from your own inner experience. So once one has gained an inner experience, one can say things like that. And then one can see that, for example, there is so much suffering in this world. One recognizes all the suffering in the world. For example, we can see how many people are committing suicide in the world. And the only way for them to become free from their misery is through the Holy Dharma ultimately. And so for that, first they have to understand the qualities of the Dharma, of the Guru. And when they see those qualities, faith arises in them. So also we have said, when we hear the story, the history, an inspiration arises within us. Then as a result of that, a clear faith in the qualities of a Buddha, the three kayas, and the Guru will arise within us. So when you have this wish of, I want to become free from suffering, that is the first kind of faith that arises within you. And then coming back to that quote, so when you see the qualities, faith arises, then the next line says, and when you become free of doubts, all intentions will become accomplished. So that means that as you engage in the practice of the path, you will become free of doubts. And when doubts disappear, your intentions will be accomplished. So in this way, therefore, the Dharma is your unfailing protection. So now when we speak about the qualities of the Guru possesses outer, inner, and secret qualities. And now this is really speaking from the perspective of secret qualities, is when you really realize that the Guru is the embodiment of the three kayas, or let's say that the three jewels, the three roots, and the three kayas. And if you think about this again and again, devotion arises within you. And eventually, uncontrived devotion arises within you. So then, whenever you encounter a Sangha member, you will immediately think that they are so precious because you have understood their qualities. And you have understood that it is these Sangha, or these spiritual masters, who open the doors of our mind, who open up our mind. And so I myself also, for instance, as a Sangha, then become liberated from suffering. And if I myself become liberated from suffering, I am able to show how to become liberated also to others. So understanding that is called devotion, and then we need to develop an uncontrived devotion. And that arises through practice. When you meditate and you come closer to the nature of the mind, you realize that your own mind, the essence of your own mind, and the Buddha's mind, and the mind of all sentient beings are actually connected. When you see the nature of your mind, then the concept of a self will go away. And then from that arises immeasurable compassion. And so first, you recognize that the first thing you realize is that your own mind is connected to the mind of all the Buddhas. And then from that, second, arises an immeasurable compassion for all sentient beings, as you realize that your mind is also connected to all sentient beings. And then ultimately you realize non-duality. And so this is really where this commitment that these great masters develop comes from this realization. They see that all sentient beings are actually nirmanakayas. They all possess Buddha nature. But they also are nirmanakayas in the sense of they are emanations of their own afflictions. For example, the beings in the 3 lower realms are emanations of stinginess, of hatred, and of jealousy. And then there are emanations of pride and so forth. So all the sentient beings in the 6 realms of samsara are like durgus, or emanations. This is also explained in the practice in the Vajrakilaya practice. So then when you understand that, you will come to a certainty, and you will realize that this has benefited me, and this will therefore also truly benefit others. If I eliminate one of my own afflictive emotions, then the afflictive emotions of sentient beings can be eliminated because our minds are connected. And so you realize that on the basis of realizing this Vabhavika Kaya and how your mind is connected to the Guru and therefore all sentient beings. And then from that arises the uncontrived devotion. Also, sorry. Also, Milarepa had spoke on that, that all sentient beings really are inseparable from the mind of the Guru. And in one conversation he had with Gampopa asked him a question, and he asked, "So when is the time that I will benefit? When is my time to benefit sentient beings?" And Milarepa replied that for as long as you see me, your old father, as just that, then you have not yet reached the time to benefit beings. But when you see me, the Guru, as the actual Buddha, that is the time that's when the time has come for you to benefit sentient beings. So that story can also be found in Milarepa's life story. And these are his actual words that can still be seen or read today. So you should look at it and really meditate on it, practice with it. And so then someone who has actually really internalized this practice and feels that, of course, no one wants to suffer. All these sentient beings don't want to suffer. But then these poor things, that they don't know how to not suffer. And in order not to suffer, they have to understand the qualities of what we just mentioned. And eventually, an uncontrived devotion has to arise within them. So for those masters who understand that, they see all samsaric appearance as illusory, all the thoughts and the afflictions and all these appearances that arise, they see them as illusory. And therefore, they do not experience, it does not affect them in one or the other way. Also, the omniscient Longchen Rabcham had said in the Mengakzöm, the treasury of Pith Instructions, that when true faith or when devotion arises, then the worldly affairs, the worldly activities become empty. And so what that means is for worldly activities to become empty is that when one realizes, when true uncontrived devotion arises, as before mentioned, then all these thoughts and afflictions and samsaric appearances that arise but are seen as nothing but illusions. Because one has realized that the mind itself is beyond birth and death, and that the next life is more important than this life. And they have realized that that karma, cause and effect, is the radiance or reflection of emptiness. And so until that realization arises, we follow the conventional or relative truth. And so here we have our prayer where we say, may beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. So the slightest happiness arises from loving kindness. So when you realize this, when you realize karma, then you know that I can actually create my own happiness, and I can actually become free from suffering if I free myself of the causes of suffering. And ultimately, because I possess Buddha nature, I can become liberated from suffering. If one doesn't understand that, then no matter what one does with body and speech, no matter how hard one tries to bring about happiness, one cannot liberate oneself from mental suffering. The only way to become liberated from mental suffering is by giving rise to an altruistic mind, a mind of bodhicitta. And so thereby self-grasping disappears. And so then when self-grasping disappears, then you have gained an experience of, for example, when a slight difficulty arises in your own life, you will not regard it as something so heavy. Otherwise, if you don't understand that, if all there is just me, and you can't really think about others much, then even the smallest suffering becomes crushing and unbearable, and people often even commit suicide. For example, it is just like you have a mountain behind your house, and from your perspective at the house, it seems to be like a huge mountain because you're like under it. But then if you look at the mountain from a different angle, from a distance, it actually appears extremely small. And so similarly, when real compassion for sentient beings has arisen, then your own suffering will seem to be very insignificant, very small. And you will feel that it's nothing compared to the suffering of all other sentient beings. So then when real compassion for beings arises, you will be able to tolerate whatever suffering experience you go through. And also that is because you know that there is a method to become liberated from that suffering. So as we said in the prayer, may beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. So you realize the cause of happiness is loving kindness and compassion in all lifetimes. Even the smallest, the slightest happiness that you experience is the kindness of bodhicitta. And even the slightest suffering that you experience is because of self-grasping. Then when you understand that, you know that whatever suffering arises is due to karma, and momentary conditions. Whatever difficulty it is, whether it is related to the Dharma or to your worldly life. But if you understand that, it will not appear as such a great difficulty, because you trust in karma, and you understand that that it is all my own karma ripening, and you're not crushed by it, because you know that beings experience much more suffering. And so if you think in such a way, then you will not think, oh, this is so terrible. You will actually see it as a beneficial thing. And also you understand that if I practice the holy Dharma, then I can become free of suffering. And so this is how, through the practice of the holy Dharma, you become free of doubts. And when you become free of doubts, all intentions will become accomplished. And that is why it also says that, I supplicate elsewhere, from within a doubtless, a mind that is free of any doubts. And the mind that is free of any doubts, from that mind arises the uncontrived devotion. And uncontrived means that it arises naturally on its own, and it is based on an understanding of the qualities of the Guru and of the Buddhas. So this is how we need to understand the uncontrived devotion.
이러다가 네 공사자치 뭐 기시라고 저게 대처를 맹 디당데 아직까지 보이도.
Bueno, aquí Rinpoche empieza hablando que la fe debe de surgir de entender las cualidades de los gurús, y el Santo Dharma, y de también entender el sufrimiento del samsara. A través de esto entendemos que las cualidades de los maestros, habla de los tulkus que aparecen en este mundo, y que los tulkus, o que también se llegan a llamar nirmanakayas, desde jóvenes poseen muchas cualidades del Santo Dharma. Entonces, la razón por la que les llamamos así es porque traen bodhicitta de vidas pasadas. Los tulkus aparecen de maneras diferentes. Ahora, en el Mahāmudrā se habla de un cuarto kaya. Este cuarto kaya, que también se llama Swabhavika kaya, es la devoción y es esencial. Entonces, las cualidades de estos kayas hay que entenderlos. Dice Guru Rinpoche, cuando escuchas la historia de los seres, de los grandes maestros, surge la inspiración. Y cuando conoces sus cualidades, surge la fe. Entonces, escuchamos historias de grandes maestros que tienen sabiduría y bodhicitta. Y entonces nace la fe en nosotros. Gracias a las plegarias de aspiraciones que hicieron estos grandes maestros en vidas anteriores, entonces es que puede haber este lazo sin interrupción y se pone a girar la rueda del Dharma. Entonces, ¿por qué aparecen estos seres, estos grandes maestros que llamamos Nirmanakaya? Aparecen porque todos los seres estamos sufriendo y ellos quieren ayudarnos. Entonces, Nirmanakaya, de alguna manera todos los seres somos Nirmanakayas. Todos tenemos naturaleza búdica.
Is the name of this path, is the fivefold path of Mahāmudrā. And Khenpo Sherab actually also gave it the name of the 5 essences, which was very actually kind of him, because it really clarifies things. And in terms of essence, it is said the essence of the Dharma is the mind of bodhicitta, and the essence of the secret mantra is the Yidam Deity. The essence of blessings is Guru devotion. So how is the essence of blessings Guru devotion? So first we need to understand that from an ordinary worldly perspective, a samsari perspective. that feeling that arises in our mind in an ordinary samsaric sense now. No, there is this feeling often that arises of joy and of happiness, this feeling of warmth that arises in your mind. And that's really the experience of a blessing. That is when we say we have received a blessing. For example, also when you see a deity and you immediately feel this warmth and you feel, I want to take refuge in this deity, there's this initial feeling that arises instantly. And that also shows that this deity is your deity from previous lifetimes. And so now the essence of blessings is the guru devotion. So we need to understand that first from a samsaric perspective, the love that we have for one another in an ordinary worldly sense. For example, if you imagine you have a friend that you love very much and you haven't seen that friend for many years, and then you see them again, what kind of feeling arises in your mind? It is a very a feeling of warmth, and that is that feeling of love that arises in the mind. So that is the feeling that we take as the basis, the samsaric feeling of love, this warmth of love that arises in our mind when we love someone. And then an even greater love, an even greater warmth than that is the immeasurable love. So we take the love between friends, for example, as the basis, recognize that feeling of love, and then it becomes even greater. It becomes immeasurable love. And how does that arise? It must arise through the guru. As you mentioned before, it arises through understanding the qualities of the guru and developing the 3 kinds of faith in the guru. So then this feeling arises, and so that feeling is the essence of blessings. It is guru devotion, or the essence of blessings is guru devotion. And so how it really arises is because the guru has understood non-duality, and the guru has seen the ultimate truth. And then you connect your mind to the guru's mind. And since the guru has seen the ultimate truth, and you connect your mind to the guru's mind, it becomes very easy for you to also see the ultimate truth. And then that is how a true guru devotion arises, or we say this is how you then receive the blessings of the guru. So that's why the essence of blessings is guru and devotion. And that's really important to understand. So we call this fivefold path also the 5 essences, because they are not only practiced in the Drikung Kagyu lineage, but they really are the essence of all the Dharma. Then Dharma friends, please take a break for 20 minutes.
Bueno, les acabo de traducir esta última sección y nos vamos a un descanso de 20 minutos. Entonces, aquí dice Rinpoche que uno se debe de cuestionar cómo sale uno de este sufrimiento del samsara y cómo puede enseñar a los demás a liberarse del sufrimiento. Entonces, esto se hace a través de entender la devoción, y debemos desarrollar la devoción sin límites. Cuando ves la naturaleza de tu mente, surge la compasión inconmensurable. Entonces llegas a la realización que tu mente está conectada a la de todos los Budas y surge compasión inconmensurable a todos los seres. Y al último realizas la no dualidad. Todos los seres son nirmanakayas, que son emanaciones de su naturaleza búdica, pero también son emanaciones de sus emociones afectivas. Debido a esto, a esta emanación, debido a estas emanaciones de las emociones afectivas, es que uno surge en los 6 reinos diferentes del samsara. Entonces realizas que esto que que te beneficia a ti, va a beneficiar a otros. Si mis emociones afectivas se pueden eliminar, las emociones afectivas de otros también se pueden eliminar. Como dijo Milarepa, todos los seres sintientes son inseparables de la mente del gurú. En una conversación que tenía Milarepa con Gampopa le preguntaba que cuándo sería cuando él podría beneficiar a todos los seres. Y entonces la respuesta de Milarepa fue: mientras me veas a mí solo como tu padre, no ha llegado el tiempo de beneficiar a todos los seres. Cuando me veas como el Buda o el Buda o el Gurú, es cuando puedes beneficiar a los demás seres. Entonces nadie quiere sufrir, pero no saben cómo dejar de sufrir. Para no sufrir, uno debe de entender las cualidades de lo que hemos mencionado. Entonces los maestros ven como todas las apariencias samsáricas son como ilusiones y no les afectan en ningún sentido. Ahora Rinpoche cita a Longchen Rapteam, que dice: cuando la verdadera fe surge, las actividades mundanas se vuelven vacuas. Entonces, hasta que no llegue uno a esta realización, seguimos todavía en la verdad relativa. Entonces, hay que realizar que la mínima felicidad surge del amor bondadoso. Si me libero de las causas del sufrimiento mental, es mediante la mente de la bodhicitta. Y entonces el apego al yo desaparece. Si solo piensas en el yo, entonces el más mínimo sufrimiento se vuelve insoportable. Inclusive la gente por esto se llega a suicidar. Hasta el más mínimo sufrimiento se debe al apego, al yo. Y se debe al karma de vidas pasadas y son situaciones momentáneas. Si uno confía en el karma y entiende que todo es mi karma, que rinde frutos, entonces si uno piensa así, uno pensará que todo es, si uno lo ve así, lo verá de una manera temporal. Uno entenderá que si practico el santo dharma, uno se libera de las dudas y todas las intenciones se consiguen. Entonces, una mente libre de dudas es la mente que surge de la devoción sin límites. Ahora, Rinpoche dice que el quíntuple camino de Mahāmudrā, que es esta oración que estamos estudiando, también se conoce como las 5 esencias. Entonces empieza hablando de la esencia del Dharma, que la esencia del Dharma es la mente de la bodhicitta. Y después habla de la esencia de las bendiciones, que es la devoción al gurú. Entonces, desde una perspectiva samsárica y nada más samsárica, hay un sentimiento que surge un sentimiento de calidad, de calidez, que surge en la mente. Y esta es la experiencia de una bendición. Cuando uno llega a ver una deidad, siente una calidez y piensa uno que quiere tomar refugio en ella. Y siente que a lo mejor es una deidad que uno ha seguido en vidas pasadas. Entonces debemos de entender el amor que tenemos por otro de manera mundana. Si no has visto, por ejemplo, si no has visto a un amigo desde hace mucho tiempo y lo reencuentras, entonces este es el sentimiento de amor. Esta es la base. Este es el sentimiento samsárico de amor. Entonces, el más grande calor es el amor inconmensurable. Entonces, tomamos como base el amor entre amigos y después se desarrolla. ¿Cómo se desarrolla? Entendiendo al gurú, desarrollando la devoción al gurú. Como surge es porque el gurú, vemos que el gurú ya entendió y vio la última verdad, la no dualidad. Si tu mente se conecta a la del gurú, es más fácil ver la última verdad. La esencia de las bendiciones es la devoción al gurú. Entonces, estas 5 esencias de las que habla Rinpoche son las esencias de todo el Dharma y no solo se encuentra en el linaje de Rinpoche. Entonces nos vamos a un descanso y regresamos en 15 minutos. Gracias.
그러니까 무좀 마찬가지로 디책도 동다데 디 책다 쳐보가리 무지만 마찬가지로 디 무제 되와 쳐버리 말하면 소장이 제 양송 디 무제 가도 살아도 난다도랑 생도 이랑 셈나 고요리 Then Ranka Sema Mushi Badiuna, Mushi Badakari, not Koa Dongir Tago, the Loti, tell me Bashi. Two tell me back on a Santok in the Kubasho, is she? Santok in the Kubasho go. Rank Dongir Tar Duros, Santok in the Kubasho go. Three? Santok in the Kubasho has a Zibagore. Three day that the Santok the Santok the Sigi or Matavare. Sigi, when you Sigi Laki or Mari, Sigi based on lady, Sigi based on Carrigan, Sigi the Kang and Jack over Mari. Ya Haja Chibita told Sonatini, Tatin Lama Semin, Saja Chibo Togger is Saja Chibo Tonatini, Tata Saja Chibo Gobati, Chutanki Tondamin Botany Saja Chibo song, Kitty song. Nimboden Betty, check the Vachel Road, Nimboden, Baby song. Then Saja Chibochi was a gang already. Saja Chibotity, Ha Kona, Gangli, Ha Kona, the Nicotis of Monan, the new regular Sanji, the Marxity Huan, Rang Nilo Great, Jamu Contraction, Rasi Sanji in Jang Momashi, not to Chuka in Jaton, Mato, Martin Numa in Jong Manu, Rawam Nelo in Jayi, Machis and Tona, Rawam, she was a Chitaki Nero, Rawam. Sem Rama, Sem did not talk to Sente, Rama Sem Carri, Rama Sem not over Central Rage. Not all maybe top the carriage in the Yamis and Rabbi was Sachi talking tower. Yeah, there is Sachi carriage. Send Daji Nima, your marriage, Toma is. Oh, Toma said Daji Nidi maybe sent the Chartilla. Then said the Nakata of chat, they already Saja told the don't tell it, Sajam. Then he was chicken, Saja Saga Tomba. Tomba, you carried Daji, your marriage. Two Papa Tomba, Papa Tomba, you take Papa Yita, some yours. Oh, not two some yours. Better don't watch Yaga Mangori, don't watch Yaga Kakas or some yours. Don't watch you tell Yaga, don't watch Kakamaris. They thought Nero Chiva territory. Continue China Jackson, Nero told the Chuba Hong May song. Oh, Mengato gonna song already. Oh, they did something in Kepa Tamsi a song. Kapa Tamsi a song carrier, Kapa song Melaribe, set the Nakachela Minas. Sa Ja Chemod, Sard, Tomba, Ja Chebore, Jachi to take out of Nakari. Oh, that is the Saja Tomba, Ja Chebore, tell me by your marriage. There 다 사자지 보고 말았더니 마디들이 사자지 보고 말은 마디 çıkanın 대송이 심리전 남파 양발아 심리전 남파 양발아 이놈도 그런 소마 대라 진이제 사karme 왜 심도들이 뒤로지 심도들이 이 라오리 남도 마디 남도 독주마다 파야쇼스 뭐도 받대 대자절 생파는 남가다고 강요 말이지 대선 거래 전도질 됐다 그래.
So, my friends, come back to our the Guru devotion that we talked about before. So there's this quote by Thigten Somgyön elsewhere, where he says that unless the sun of devotion shines upon the snow mountain of the Guru's four kayas, the current or the stream of blessings will not emerge, and so forth. So this the sun of devotion is the crucial point that we are speaking about here. And also we take the quote by Milarepa that we mentioned before on devotion as a basis. And then take that quote by Thigten Somgyön and look at your mind. As we mentioned before, you don't see the Buddha outside, but he's within your own mind. So you have to look at your own mind. So within your own mind, what is devotion? What does devotion actually mean? So the Tibetan term devotion consists of actually two words. So it's mö gu, and mö means, and again, aspiration, So first you have an aspiration. I want to become liberated from the suffering of samsara. So if that is your aspiration, then you need to pay respect to bodhicitta. So that's the second syllable. Gu means to respect. So you have an aspiration to be free from suffering, and therefore you must respect the mind of bodhicitta. And so if you want to become free from suffering, you need to cultivate bodhicitta, or in other words, you need to cultivate patience. And bodhicitta is like the milk of a lion. So it's not actually a real lion now, it's just an example. And the reason why the lion is taken as an example is because the lion doesn't have to be afraid of any other animal. When it comes to the realization of the view of Mahāmudrā, so the guru tells you practice Mahāmudrā. This is the view of Mahāmudrā, and now meditate. And that's the essence of the ultimate Dharma. It is the view of Mahāmudrā. And Kenshin Sherab was very kind to kind of rephrase it to, instead of the fivefold, into the five essences. Because if we see it as an essence, then it becomes even more powerful, and it really helped my own understanding a lot. And so now Mahāmudrā, so how can we understand it? In the Samantabhadra prayer it says, if you recognize it, you are a Buddha. Not recognizing it, you are a sentient being wandering in samsara. So recognizing it is the nature of the mind. And Chamgyal Kongtrul had said that I have not recognized my own mind to be Buddha. I have not realized that thoughts are dharmakaya. I have not seen the innate the innate nature of my mind. I have not developed trust. I have not truly trusted in my true nature. And that is my true nature in the natural innate state. So the natural innate state is the state of mind that is free of all thinking, of all discursive thoughts. So again, the natural state of the mind is just that. It's just the thought-free mind. And in order to come to that state, to realize it, that there is, for example, the method of the practice blessing lineage, such as the view of Mahāmudrā or Dzogchen. In the Mahāmudrā teachings, the instruction says, there is no duality within the mind. There is no self and other. Your mind is empty. And look at the mind that is without self and other, where self and other are inseparable. That mind is like space. And that is the actual meaning of Mahāmudrā, and nothing else. So that is the meaning of emptiness. So the term Mahāmudrā, this mudra part, is that it refers to the vast emptiness. And so the way we often understand emptiness is just an empty space, like you have two vases that represent self and other, and then the emptiness inside those vases is one and the same. So now when you look at two vases, you think that there is two. So you think that there's you and me, which is just like thinking that, if you are a branch of a tree, you think that the other branches of the tree are all separate from you. When in reality, they're not separate. They're all connected to the same trunk, which represents the nature of the mind. Also, Longchen Rabcham had said again in the Menga Tzu, the Treasury of Pith Instructions, he said that when you realize the natural state of the mind, there is no higher learning than that. And that corresponds to all the words by the great scholars and also the accomplished masters. For example, Milarepa, who had said, mind and space are inseparable. So in Mahāmudrā, the mudra part represents is a sign of vast emptiness, or it means vast emptiness. So the measure of mind is in infinity, like space. Space is infinite. And so emptiness is infinite. And that's what it is, and nothing else. That is the true essence of Mahāmudrā. So in the fivefold path of Mahāmudrā, also in a different song, Thich Nhat Hanh said in the verse on Mahāmudrā, he said that unless the clouds of discursive thinking vanish into the open sky of the mind itself, the twofold wisdom of the planets and the stars will not emerge, will not be revealed. Therefore, apply yourself with diligence in non-conceptuality. So actually, from this perspective, it's quite simple. Simply don't cling to your thoughts. Don't analyze your thoughts. Just let them be. And that itself is non-conceptuality. So there is nothing, no thought. There's nothing at all that exists within the space-like mind. So therefore, if you just let whatever arises be, that is all that need to be done in realizing the mind as Mahāmudrā.
Bueno, bienvenidos a todos. Regresamos a la parte de la devoción al gurú. Aquí Rinpoche cita a Jigten Sumgon, en donde dice que si el sol de la devoción no brilla sobre los 4 kayas del gurú, entonces no se verá la luz clara de la mente. Entonces esto quiere decir que no veas al Buda fuera de tu mente. El Buda está dentro de tu mente. Debes de ver y analizar tu mente. Entonces, ¿qué es la devoción? En tibetano, devoción se dice mo-gu. Está compuesto por 2 sílabas. Mo es la aparición de liberarse del samsara. El aspirar a liberarse del samsara. Entonces, la parte de gu, de la segunda sílaba, es el dar el respeto a la bodhicitta. Respetar la mente de la bodhicitta. Entonces se debe de cultivar la bodhicitta y la paciencia. La bodhicitta, dice Rinpoche, es como la leche de la leona. La leona se utiliza en este ejemplo, puesto que no le tiene miedo a otros animales. No se tiene que preocupar de otros animales. Entonces, a través de la visión de Mahāmudrā, se medita, y esta es la esencia del Dharma. Se medita en la mente y esta es la esencia del Dharma. Ahora vuelve a citar Rinpoche a Ken Sherab y dice, le agradece que haya traducido como las 5 esencias este quíntuple camino. Esto es más poderoso y ayuda a entender mejor. Entonces dice que en el Mahāmudrā se dice que si reconoces la luz clara de tu mente, eres un Buda. Si no, eres un ser vagando en el samsara. Entonces, reconocer la naturaleza de la mente libre de pensamientos. Esto es lo que debes de hacer. Entonces, en las instrucciones de Mahāmudrā se dice que no hay dualidad en la mente. La mente es vacua. La mente es como el espacio. Ese es el significado del Mahāmudrā. Entonces, la segunda sílaba de Mahāmudrā, el mudra, es la vasta vacuidad. Aquí Rinpoche cita a Longchen Rapyam, que dice, cuando realices el estado natural de la mente, no hay una enseñanza superior. Y también cita Milarepa, cuando dice que la mente y el espacio son inseparables. Entonces, en Mahāmudrā, la parte de mudra, de la palabra Mahāmudrā, quiere decir vasta vacuidad. La medida de la mente es infinita como el espacio. La vacuidad es infinita. Esa es la verdadera esencia del Mahāmudrā. simplemente no te apegues a tus pensamientos, no los analices. Esto es la no conceptualización. Si dejas si lo dejas que sea, esto es lo único que tienes que hacer para realizar la mente.
This Jamata song. Then Cortego now Jamata variety. There are Tapas come to Madaba, some Jiranga, Pachale, Ragan now later. The largest of women at Tonda with Deba Tong Sona, now I said the Tachu girl. Semito Bartachu, Chasar Sem Conito Banina, Nakatavina, didn't shower what I'm saying, Lord Mataba, Jamata song. Now I Jumaran Gina, Pete Yayore. 이 따로 또 고아 그때는 제대로 양단을 거는 돈 양철이 막하래 남도 가시야 되는데 정도면서 제가 봐요 요를 가래 요설이 다른 지시를 받게 지시를 받는 데잖아 봐 요거만 설린 거요 많이 랑이가 되더니 랑이가 받쳐면 로요를 빼나 내가 말이 배송은 곰 시바데 가장 기본을 못해서 곰 곰te 곰을 줘서면 곰들은 다 자체하고 열리면 우리들이 곰 잡았다 뭐 잡았다 이요래 밤에 그걸 곰 잡고 당에 곰 고쳐 싸와서 제발 그 곰지 이런 될 잡고 그래 이런 다동거지 무슨 남자는 저거 곰지 곰te 가리 곰도 곰거리지 너도 팔 줘야 돼 나도 줘야 될 곰거리지 데이터가 송선이 리 라워리 좀 방에 손이더니 라웨 이 마치바 센지상저 다다 사진 독지 깨다치 뭐레 또부터 로망고로 또부터 봐 말이 라웨 이 마치바 센지상저 디하고도 가래 오 깨면 실랍도 줄을 뒤시 사실 강하면 됐대 너도 정도 나또 사는 지시 제시 나또 사는 자잖아 남까지 쳐달라고 남카를 좀 타봐야지 사람 뛰는 남카 탐성 됐다 나또 박차죠 그요 말이 박차 좋아하지 시합 쪽으로 나또 박차지 말을 봐 그래야 오 뒤리 띵은이리 네가 뭐지 뒤도 돼서 당들이 치아라고 차단이 하래 차를 해도 하래 이 집에 받는 차바바바는 이거 내려더니 차바바바는 이게 내lok들이 많이 되잖아. 초락하 봐봐는 차로 쏘도 와지. 그때 쏘고 그 사치지 그때 쏘고 초락하 봐봐는 거래지. 밤에 무슨 피터는 초를 가 봐봐는 들이 초고 차들이 가봐요 말과 들이 참아 되게는 싫어요라. 싫어로 샘시가 말 리드 싫어래. 내 마음이 사람들 리드 좀 왔다 그래. 내 싫어를 맞아. 도나 샘을 제시 매봐 하고는 다 동반이 다 성어 때문에 다들 싸워도 김이 싸동 다들 주적거서 다 사자지 보고 말하는데 김이 싸동 다들 주적거지 기아미 받으면 생각 내놓도 다 삭심이 독심이 강염이 생활을 내놓게 그 인식 생을 강령이 너무 강이 지주도 좋았던 영향을 강이야 맞지 뭐야 이 쌀들은 지와면은 쌀아들이 죽고 막지도 로고도 낚시를 받는 마토버는 낚시에 가다 낚시대 나오냐 반다 코는 로요래 남도대 뭐하대 때는 심히 시바들 딱지 당거래 심히 시바들 싸워 하고는 디싸워도 시바들 뭐하대 때는 가야는 쌀 남가다 오지 쌀을 나 시바 싸워도 돼 내가 낚시 싸워도 나오냐 봐도 낚시 나니님도 독서 다 나오냐 봐 똥살아 나니님은 sen 남갈 때는 재미 쌀도 똥살 남가다 차서 남갈 니도 왜 남갈이요만 다음에 남갈 님도 독서 생 코라는 이 야차 잡는 독서들이 지들이 제거래 딱 딱지에 땅에 사지 깔아 딱지에 땅 오서 또바디 东路的大的东路，到过大的就很高，当过就很美酷，刚年马上，刚年马上，呀，这块他妈没把差点熬，你妈的南京有个的，到大几级，东的大几级没到去，不怕多半年，不怕差什么，能多半年7、8没到去，2种没到去。这到下个这没啥了东的，当不刚年马去吧，刚年马说吧，这个那什么着吧，当然这些有的。当我计划没把这里，刚年马去，刚年马从，让从，呀，他的每个就要么的，就绿脚差不多学从现在写要么的，那个可以第几层了，我要么第几层，都落的工作有的呀，刚没的，那的呢，他搞的我这绿了那有的去，绿的写着的，他才搞这个都，当然那个别去，当然那个别去。这个健康那生到查哇的生活在路下可能，我刚那样嘛，这是我哪都要不到去，大的这稍微成龙到的，大的都上了都把上上，我起码当时就讲刚脱了呀有么的，大的龙了就不要他的，我们打下去，我们打完搞的地里拍过来的呀，大家就讲没什么来的去了，我这个马上。像啥东西了，啥话对我都把那块到这个的，我全部内容的贴了去，大啥都那块到的，这全部那块前面把到的，这都块全部那的，英日是英日马文出的，英日马文出的英的，英的阿妈到那块的英到的，甚至我去我俺的呢，咱们那个沙岗的没就到差的了，对。就就考了，7就考了说，南就考了的，刚才说差进了，你才刚到差的嘞，你什么呀？两的有嘞，南就考了是，一就考了，这没人说了，大我当时讲没人过，没人多少都那个的差不多差过来的，这所以7就考了，南就考了，一就考了说，那上面就这些有嘞，这到说讲到了，这没啥东他那去就可以。大姐当他妈当时，全部那种那时大姐嘛当时，他们铁窗的在下不了我就第啥去就第啥，刚起大姐当铁窗的老有的，像那种的大姐嘛当时，那种的大姐当了这里他怎么来的？什么那种那讲的，那种多呢，这种多了没上过去了，人家上的一种，去把他们这个上拿就不吃了，这个地方这么过，龙肉把了的，马来不送了的。呀，龙兴啊，杨送了的，接送嘎不送了的，然后那说这套就送的呢，这就这套把钱用到要么的，这个的人就把出我的，东西到里，这两个电两年前了，搞的那电两年前了，这里你妈这个的人啊，一个的人，我不说这个的人，还可用什么来的，他这里花个这里搞过的，就是两年前的，这然后这的当花个这里搞过的。罗这个这里的罗这个让中一些男人晓得，这种没办法，因为我说不来的说话的，这个那多我弄的，这个那多咋出的，罗这个的让中一些男人查送，没来的送的，他们现在要我送，这说这基本上都他们去过的，我这里门槛他出个的，他出个那块到这里，第一年3件事情就看看我们那边的，3件他们这家娃他们这些弄的这个，也是的，身上看的。让那个神，他南极的一些人跑到生活过来的，南极的一些人哈嘛我呢，南极的中国人我像话有的，大年纪的有的，一些哈过上生活在路哈过上，一些在啥的，一些把这个搞的，甚至托马门的都是，忙把了都是，搞就可以接什么都上了，但不知怎么那的什么的。这种就叫Mahāmudrā没的，我们来吃瓜没事。像过年lúc thì thế tao rồi thì,咱们那上岗头上哪怕是干嘛的，就家用嘛。现在哪怕切米了，什么了别着呀，这头就上了当了，这这米上当头的去过的，出个就用这些人也对吧？的，然后搞错的，挂个这些呢，对，这个东西了，这他当的了，这去不定的他有的，光搞这么这他妈跟这些这样那样就去。结果来着，
So in that quote by Jigten Sumgön, it said, unless the clouds of conceptual thinking or the discursive thoughts vanish into the sky of the mind itself. So when you look at the mind, at first you see many thoughts in the mind. But even though you see those thoughts in the mind, when you don't grasp at these thoughts, then that is when they vanish on their own into the sky of mind itself. And then the planets and stars of the twofold wisdom or knowledge will reveal themselves. The twofold knowledge is the knowledge of how things really are, and the knowledge of how many things there are, the extent of things that there are. So the knowledge of things, how they really are, refers to the knowledge of the ultimate truth. And then the knowledge of the extent of things is the relative truth. That even though there is the ultimate truth of how things actually are, there still is the illusion-like manifestations of samsara and nirvana. And they all arise interdependently. And that interdependent arising is their empty nature. So also regarding the twofold knowledge, Khenpo Tenzin can explain that to you in much more detail. You can also ask him questions. Also, right now, our time is very limited, and also I don't know how to explain that so well. But also it is said in the Karma Kagyu prayer that in their prayer festival, in that prayer book, it says there is nothing, anything at all can arise. Although nothing at all inherently exists, anything at all can arise. So anything at all can arise, although it lacks inherent existence. So from the perspective of the ultimate truth, nothing at all inherently exists, meaning that there is no duality, no separately existing things that exist. It is just that because we perceive things in a dualistic way, that we think that there is this great diversity of different beings and everything appears in a dualistic way. And so that is what we call the dualistic phenomena. And all dualistic phenomena are compounded phenomena. And it is said that whatever is compounded is impermanent by nature. Also in the Daglung Kagyu prayer, it speaks about that all appearance of samsara and nirvana is illusory by nature. So as long as we see things in a dualistic way, we experience suffering. In particular, the beings in the three lower realms experience tremendous suffering. And all of that ultimately is illusory. And how is it illusory? For example, now it is just like creating a film, like on a TV show, like a film. So it is because of the karmic imprints that we have accumulated in the mind that this various illusory manifestations appear, just like when we are making a film. For example, the karmic imprints are like the clips that we record when we are creating a film. And so due to the karmic imprints that have been reinforced since beginningless time, there is a solid perception of there being a self and also the existence of others. So we perceive a duality of self and other. We think that there is me and then there is them and him and so on. So these imprints are accumulated continuously day and night. The Samantabhadra prayer says the imprints gradually grow stronger and thicker. So many imprints are accumulated that lead to a certain manifestation. And this is very similar to the creation or the production of a film, when you're making a film. So for example, when you're making a film of a clip of somebody who is first lying down in their bed and then they're getting up, so you keep taking a picture of the picture as they're like getting up from their bed, and then they move around and they speak to others. And while this happens in a short time, countless pictures are being taken, and when these pictures are all put together, it creates the illusion. Even though you have static pictures, it creates the illusion of someone actually, of movement and something happening. And so similarly, we create this illusion of samsara through accumulation of many imprints in our mind. And there are many more in-depth explanations on that, but in brief, the karmic imprints amassed create the illusion of a dualistic existence. And to someone who has seen the ultimate truth, they can see that that doesn't actually inherently exist. But they do not think that it doesn't exist. There is no thought. They do not think things are real, nor do they think that things are not real. Whatever arises, they simply let it be, and then whatever arises will disappear on its own accord, just like a wave subsiding back into the water. And this is what we call liberation. So liberation means the liberation from discursive thinking. And it also entails a lack of feeling. So there is no feeling at all left behind. So it has completely disappeared, dissipated back into the mind. Then, of course, if we analyze a certain situation with a dualistic perception and we keep thinking about it over and over again, then that feeling doesn't disappear. The feeling just grows stronger and stronger. Or the ice block solidifies more and more. And so then that is what creates the appearance of this duality of samsara and nirvana. So with that understanding, one should recognize that whatever thought arises in the mind, let it be as it is, and it will vanish back into the sky of the mind itself, just like a cloud vanishing into the sky. So you don't actually have to think it has to go away. You don't have to make it go away, but you just simply don't cling to it. And if you don't grasp whatever arises, it will subside on its own, just like a wave on water or like a cloud in the sky. And this is also how it is explained in the Dzogchen teachings, for example. So it explains how the mind, the thoughts arising in the mind subside just like waves on water or like clouds in the sky. And the sky is like an example of the empty mind. The clouds or the thoughts appearing in the sky are not separate from the sky, but they are a magical display of the sky itself. They are like the illusory play of the mind itself. Illusory because they will not stay. They will always go away on their own accord. If you simply don't grasp at them, they will just go away. So the key point is not to grasp. There is no need to think that no, these thoughts need to go away. I don't want these thoughts. Simply stay within a thought-free mind without grasping at anything whatsoever. In the Ganges Mahāmudrā, the Ganges Mahāmudrā really gives an ultimate introduction by just saying, without a single thought, decisively look at your true nature. Without a single thought, meaning do not think it is real and do not think that it is not real. Without a single thought, you just stay in the natural state of the mind. And whatever arises then will not stay. It will go away on its own. Therefore, it is explained to be just like an illusion. All appearances of samsara and nirvana are illusions. All pure and impure appearances. For example, the pure appearances of the Pure Lands and the impure appearances of samsara. They all are as self-projection, a manifestation of one's own mind. It is also explained in the 37 Bodhisattva practices that the way things appear is your own mind. When you see the ultimate truth, you will resolve that all appearances are my own mind. The way I perceive things is my own mind. And appearances are only temporary. They are impermanent. They arise momentarily and then they're gone. And that is the meaning of the illusory nature of appearances. They will not remain. So first you need to understand that and then reflect upon this understanding over and over again. So it becomes an actual practice. And so then it happens in a very direct way once you have habituated to it. So now currently, when we grasp at a dualistic existence of subject and object, of self and other, without a single thought, you let it all be, and you rest within clear awareness. And within clear awareness, there is nothing to be adopted and nothing to be rejected. You just let it all be as it is naturally, and then the feelings, the appearances that have arisen will naturally disappear on their own. And so that corresponds to the words by Milarepa, as we mentioned before. And also previously, Garchen Rinpoche had explained this. But so the meaning of meditation now, how we habituate this. So the meaning of meditation etymologically is, from a kind of grammatical perspective, is it means to habituate. So there is an act, an actual, like as an actor, someone who is doing something, someone who an act of habituation. And so, for example, you're thinking, I am meditating, I'm habituating. And so actually what meditation really means is that there is no actual deliberate act or actor of meditation, but it is a simple process of habituation. And what needs to be habituated is the letting be of arising thoughts. So from that perspective, then it becomes quite easy. It is actually also said that it is because it is too easy, because it might be too easy, people will not trust in it. So now we make it something very fancy. We call it Mahāmudrā and Dzogchen, so it seems to be something really special. And we are sort of left even after many years not having realized it. And that might also be because it is so easy that it is incomprehensible, that we just don't trust it because it's too easy. We think it has to be something very unique or special. So all it really is as it is said in the Genji's Mahāmudrā book, without a single thought, decisively look at your ultimate nature. Whatever thought arises in the mind, let it be. And then it will dissolve on its own, just like a wave just subsiding back into water or a cloud vanishing into the sky. And this is how, when awareness is sustained, you do not place a further imprint into the mind. So for as long as we keep placing imprints in the mind, we are in a state of ignorance. And so what is this state of ignorance? We think that, basically it means to think that whatever appears to us and how things appear to us, this is how it is, that's real. We think that this is real, and that person did something good to me, and that person did something bad to me. And so they are ignorance are these thoughts of attachment and anger. And the subtle counterparts of attachment and anger are hope and fear. And these continuously, like snowflakes falling down, accumulate because we continuously habituate them due to a mind of unawareness or ignorance. So the key instruction is of Mahāmudrā, also as Jigten Sumgön had taught it in the co-emergent Mahāmudrā, is that simply let it be and rest in the natural state of the mind. Then all the thoughts arising are just like rain falling down and dissolving, or like snowflakes dissolving on a lake. But if you are unmindful, then these snowflakes accumulate and it grows into stronger and thicker layers. And then we die within such a state of clinging to the truth of our perceptions. However, the mind will not die. It is just the body that dies within such a state. The mind transcends birth and death. And so that is what must be recognized first in order to recognize emptiness. So in here, in the next line, in the next paragraph says, the Dharmakaya is unborn, empty clarity without extremes. So here we are moving onto the practice of Mahāmudrā. So unborn, the Dharmakaya is unborn. The nature of the mind is unborn. And this is also how we are often introduced when we are introduced to Mahāmudrā or Dzogchen. We are told that the mind is free of arising, abiding, and cessation. So really, without clinging to lofty terms of Mahāmudrā and Dzogchen and so on, all we are really speaking about here is the nature of the mind. So what is it? It is unborn, meaning that it has not arisen from anywhere. It is unarisen. But it is clear. So it is empty clarity. It hasn't arisen from anywhere, but there is still clear awareness. So for as long as we have not realized its nature, we call it the consciousness. And a consciousness perceives itself as an I. So there is this I, this concept of me, going around. And so then when you analyze, when you look into the mind with clear awareness, there is a clear knowing capacity that recognizes its own empty nature. So that is this empty clarity. So when you look at the essence of the mind, there is nothing to be found there, but there is clear awareness that is aware of its space-like empty nature. So there is an empty mind, but there is clear awareness that recognizes all thoughts that arise in the mind. So for as long as we perceive an I, that mind is called the consciousness. And then when you realize that there is no I, self and other are inseparable, then it is called the non-dual primordial awareness. So what becomes empty is this concept of me, this thought of an I. And then when you look at this space-like empty nature, it is recognized as unborn. Unborn, empty clarity. You recognize that because you understand, once you have understood that the mind is like space, you can understand that within space there's no duality, there's no two in space. And then you realize that, oh, my mind is also non-dual. There's no duality in my mind. So you come to like a 100% certainty that there is no duality within the mind. So a trust arises. And so this is how it is said we should analyze the words of the Buddha, the teachings of the Buddha. So when we speak about emptiness, we also need to understand how things are empty, how the mind is empty. And so to understand that, we first must understand the source. Where does it come from? It comes from nowhere. It is unarisen or unborn. But since beginningless time, we have habituated to the karmic imprint of an I that actually does not exist. So that is the imprint that we have accumulated. And that arises continuously but has no origin, no source it arises from. So it is the Dharmakaya is unborn, and so it is also explained that it is unborn, unabiding, and unceasing. So in the beginning, it doesn't come from anywhere. It has no source. This is also called self-arisen. It is self-arisen. Then in the middle, it never ceases to be. It cannot go out of existence. Even if you take birth hundreds of times in different bodies, the mind never ceases to be. The mind never dies. Taking birth over and over again is just like changing your clothing depending on your karma. And then the eye continues to go on from life to life. But the mind itself never changes in any way. It's just the body. And so that's why we may think that the mind abides within the body. Now speaking about the mind has no abiding place. So it's unborn, it never ceases, and it abides nowhere. So we might think that the mind is in the body, but when the body disintegrates, then where is the mind? It's still there, but it has no abiding place. So this is how we understand the nature of the mind, as being without arising, cessation, or abiding. So when you meditate on that, you may think that there is a mind, or there is something, we can see things, but that is illusory. So don't think that there is anything that's actually there. Don't grasp at a concrete reality or your concept structures with regard to the various appearances. Just let things be as they are. For example, in the view of the Madhyamaka, the middle way, this is explained in terms of, on the basis of the scriptures and logical reasoning. So how it is understood from that perspective is actually very similar to how it is explained in Mahāmudrā, where the key point is do not grasp. Do not have a single thought. Without a single thought, decisively look at your true nature. So do not think anything at all. Just stay in the clear and empty space-like nature of the mind and look at your true nature. That is like space. So that is just like in the Dzogchen teachings, it is that it is just, this recognition is just like the meeting of expanse and awareness is like the meeting of a mother and her child, or the reunion of a mother with her child. And so here the expanse, the ultimate expanse, is like the mother, and awareness is like the child. So they reunite. Also speaking about the expanse, the space element, or the 5 elements, actually are all complete within a person. So one person's body and mind are the microcosm of the entire outer universe and all beings. For example, that's how it is explained in the Kala Chakra teachings. This is how the Kala Chakra, this is referred to as the outer Kala Chakra, so how the universe is complete within one person. And then the inner Kala Chakra is that, and then the same is true for even the tiniest, the smallest life form, the most subtle life form. They also have a body and a mind. And within their body and mind, the entire universe and all beings are complete. And then the third one is the other Kala Chakra, and that is when the mind has matured, then one's body and mind, or the elements and the mind, then mature into the appearance of the pure forms and the pure realms. In an unripe, immature state, temporarily, the mind then manifests the 6 realms of samsara. So in the new tantric system, in the Kala Chakra, for instance, this is explained as the outer, inner, and the other Kala Chakra. So the Dharmakaya is unborn, empty clarity without extremes. Also without extremes implies do not analyze anything. So when it comes to the nature of the mind, we should not analyze at all, and we should just rest and let things be. Otherwise, doubts will arise in the mind. And of course, when it comes to our activities in the world or in the Dharma, various activities, we do analyze things, and we have like a kind of a doubtful or a kind of a critical mind in order to do things properly. But when it comes to looking at the nature of the mind, we do not analyze at all. We just rest in the natural state, letting it all be. So coming back to that quote by the omniscient Longchen Rabcham, and please remember this quote. So this quote said, "There is no higher learning than to realize the nature of the mind." So you should remember this quote. And so also then Khenpo can explain these words to you. And actually, even though my words are very brief, they still represent the essence and are in agreement with what the great scholars have said. And because they are based on the words of the great masters like Longchen Rabcham or Milarepa, and also Je Tsongkhapa, and so forth. And whether it is the scholars or the accomplished masters, there is they all are in agreement when it comes to that. There is no doubt about that. So there is no doubt about the authenticity of these words. So the essence is that if you understand this and you continue to engage in such practice, then one day it will become just natural. The thoughts will dissipate naturally. As we just mentioned before, as Milarepa had said, and so forth. And then confidence arises within you. And so now in the Mahāmudrā teachings, the various stages as to how we progress, it begins with the single-pointedness. The second stage is freedom from elaboration. So single-pointedness and freedom from elaboration follow the understanding that we have gained. And then on the basis of this understanding, as we habituate this understanding, one day we reach the view of the third stage, which is the stage of one taste. And then the understanding becomes experiential, a real experience. Then the true meaning of this self-arisen, non-dual primordial awareness will manifest directly, and you will become free of doubts at this point. So in the beginning, in the stage of single-pointedness, first the concepts are suppressed. And then in the second stage of freedom from elaboration, they no longer arise at all, so they become uprooted. And then within the stage of one taste, then everything that appears as one, as great equanimity. So this is also how Milarepa had explained it. So the Dharmakaya is like unborn, an empty space. And within that state, the Buddhas and sentient beings are not separate. It is also said, within the expanse of primordial wisdom, all the Buddhas are one. So the mind of the Buddhas and your own mind, the outer space, is all one. When your own ordinary consciousness transforms into primordial wisdom, that is when you see the true nature of the mind. And so the fault of why we do not see it is because we still cling to the existence of an I. We perceive a duality of self and other. So once we understand the nature of the mind, what we understand is non-duality. And that is how then the consciousness is transferred or transforms into primordial wisdom. And at this point, you realize that this mind has been there since primordial times. It has always been there, and in the future, it will always be there. It will never cease to be. It is beyond birth and death. In the Samantabhadra prayer, it also says, even though the 3 realms were to be destroyed, there is no fear. There is no attachment to the 5 desirables of the senses. So when you truly see the nature of the mind, then it becomes just like that. Then even if the entire world would come to an end, would be destroyed, space cannot be destroyed. And your mind is indivisible from space. Just as Milarepa said, you must realize that mind is inseparable from space. And then there is no fear, even if the world were to be destroyed. So this is the meaning of the Dharmakaya as unborn, empty clarity without extremes. And so this explanation I just gave you, I am giving you on the basis of my own personal understanding of this. And then Khenpo Tenzin can also elaborate on these words. He has been extremely kind to make this effort to again and again explain things to us. So you also should consult him on the meaning of these words.
Bueno, aquí Rinpoche empieza citando una plegaria Karmakaya, en donde dice que todo puede surgir, aunque nada existe inherentemente. Entonces, desde la perspectiva de la última verdad, nada existe. No hay dualidad. Entonces, ¿por qué percibimos de esta manera dual? Este es el fenómeno dualista. Es compuesto. Y lo que es compuesto es impermanente por naturaleza. Entonces, la aparición de samsara y nirvana es ilusoria por naturaleza. Los seres de los 3 reinos inferiores experimentan gran sufrimiento por las huellas kármicas. Estas manifestaciones ilusorias aparecen como en una película. Debido a las huellas kármicas, hay una percepción de haber un yo y otros. Una dualidad de yo y otros. Entonces, estas huellas se refuerzan día y noche, se vuelven más fuertes y más profundas. Esto es parecido a la producción de una película. Así creamos la ilusión del samsara, por la acumulación de varias huellas kármicas. Alguien que ha visto y conoce la última verdad, ve que esto no existe inherentemente. No piensa en las cosas, que las cosas son reales o no reales.
2 words in this line that are very important, and that is without extremes. And so now in the Tibetan language, it's quite unique in some regards, because if you write down a short word like that, and so much meaning is actually expressed by just these 2 words, like these 2 words without extremes, or being free from extremes. So a lot of meaning is included in just a very short word. So here, for example, extremes, it refers to the various mistaken views, wrong views. There are around 360 wrong or mistaken views in this world. But ultimately, they fall into either being an eternalistic view or a nihilistic view. So these are the 2 great extremes. And so when we speak about being free of faults and possessing all qualities, then that's what we speak about. So being free of the 2 extremes of eternalism and nihilism is being free of all faults. And then that leads to possessing all enlightened or good qualities. So also in the Dzogchen aspiration prayer on the basis, path, and result, in there it speaks about that. So it says that the empty essence of the mind dispels the extreme view of eternalism. So then we say it is the nature of the mind is empty. So it is inexpressible. It is also said it's inexpressible in being beyond words and thought. So then that being said, then one might think that, well, then it doesn't exist. Some people say that, but then they fall into the extreme of nihilism, and that's also a mistaken view. It's not nothing too. The mind is still clear. So therefore in that prayer, then it continues and it says, the clarity, the natural clarity of the mind dispels the fault of nihilism. So the empty essence dispels the fault of eternalism, and the natural clarity dispels the fault of nihilism. And so that is what we call the true nature of the mind, which is this unity of clarity and emptiness, which is all pervasive, just like space. So this is the meaning of being without extremes. In brief, being without the extreme of either eternalism or nihilism. So that is a very important word. And so, this concludes our understanding of the Dharmakaya. Thank you, everyone who's joined us on the live stream. I love you all, and long life.
Entonces, la liberación del pensamiento discursivo es cuando los pensamientos desaparecen y regresan a la mente. Uno debe reconocer que cualquier pensamiento que surge en la mente hay que dejarlo como está, y solo por sí mismo va a regresar a la mente, como una nube en el cielo. En el Dzogchen se dice que los pensamientos desaparecen como las olas en el agua. Entonces, no hay que pensar que no quieres los pensamientos. Simplemente permanece en la mente libre de pensamientos. En el Mahāmudrā del Ganges se dice, sin un solo pensamiento observa el estado natural de la mente. Entonces, todo lo puro e impuro son una proyección, una manifestación de tu mente. La manera que las cosas aparecen es tu propia mente. Reflexiona vez tras vez hasta que se convierte en una práctica. Entonces, cuando esto sucede de manera directa, es cuando lo habitúas. Si te aferras al objeto y al sujeto, al yo y al otro, entonces descansa en la atención clara. La meditación significa que no hay actor deliberado de la meditación. Lo que se tiene que habituar es el dejar que los pensamientos surjan. Porque es muy fácil, porque esto es muy fácil, la gente no confía en ello. Lo hacemos muy especial, le damos nombres rimbombantes, como Mahāmudrā, y después de muchos años de practicarlo no lo realizamos. Pero es tan fácil que es incomprensible. Sin un solo pensamiento, observa la naturaleza última de la mente. Si seguimos dejando huellas en la mente, seguimos en un estado de ignorancia. Entonces, si piensas, esta persona hizo algo bueno por mí, esta persona hizo algo malo hacia mí, esto continúa como copos de nieve que se acumulan y se habitúan. Entonces, la instrucción principal del Mahāmudrā, déjalo ser y descansa en el estado natural de la mente. Si no tienes atención, estos copos de nieve se acumulan y uno muere en este estado de aferramiento. Entonces, la mente trasciende la muerte y el nacimiento. Ahora, el siguiente párrafo. El Dharmakaya no tiene nacimiento. La naturaleza de la mente tampoco tiene principio. La mente está libre de cualquier surgimiento. Entonces, de lo que hablamos es de la naturaleza de la mente, que no ha surgido, pero es clara. Mientras no realicemos su naturaleza, la llamamos la conciencia. Hay este concepto de yo, pero si ves la mente con atención clara, reconoces su naturaleza vaga. Si ves la esencia de la mente, no hay nada que encontrar, pero hay conciencia clara, una atención clara, que reconoce todos los pensamientos que surgen en la mente. Si realizas que no hay un yo, esto es la conciencia no dual. Una vez que entiendes que la mente es como el espacio, entiendes que no hay dualidad. Llegas a una certeza de que no hay dualidad y surge la confianza. Así debemos analizar las enseñanzas del Buda. Debemos entender cómo la mente es vacua y debemos entender la fuente debemos entender cuál es la fuente. Entonces, desde el tiempo sin principio nos hemos acostumbrado a las huellas kármicas del yo. Entonces, el Dharmakaya no tiene nacimiento, no tiene cesamiento y no mora. Entonces, no pienses que hay algo ahí, no te aferres a una realidad conceptual, deja que las cosas sean como son. En el Madhyamika se explica también de una manera similar, se explica que desde las escrituras, algo parecido al Mahāmudrā, dice, no te aferres a los pensamientos, mantente en la naturaleza clara, cual espacio de la mente. En el Dzogchen se dice que este reconocimiento es como la unión de una madre y su hijo. Entonces, en el último espacio y la conciencia, los 5 elementos están completos, todos en una persona. Así se explican las enseñanzas del Kalachakra. Entonces, dice una última enseñanza de Mahāmudrā, donde habla de la atención unipuntual. El entendimiento de la atención es liberar la elaboración, de que no surjan los pensamientos. Y al final, todo esto se vuelve un solo sabor, el entendimiento experiencial, que todo aparece como gran ecuanimidad. Entonces, habla de Rinpoche del Dharmakaya. El Dharmakaya es sin principio, es vacuo como el espacio. Si uno llega a comprender esto, comprende que todos los Budas son como uno. Cuando tu conciencia se transforma en sabiduría primordial, ves la naturaleza de la mente y entiendes la no dualidad. En este punto te das cuenta que esta mente siempre ha estado y siempre estará. En la plegaria de Samantabhadra se dice, aunque los 3 reinos se destruyan, no hay miedo, no hay apego a los sentidos. El espacio no puede ser destruido y tu mente es inseparable del espacio. Entonces aquí Rinpoche nos pide que si tenemos dudas, consultemos a Khenpo Tenzin, que él sabe mucho de este tema. Y esto es todo. Muchas gracias a todos. Una traducción de Amigos Dripping. Que tengan feliz fin de semana.